Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Hasbanallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runneth over, and surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Johnny's Bite. We're finishing very, very well on our Ramadan fast. And I want to say thank you to Suna Fashions in Tamale for my Jarabia. It's a beautiful Jarabia, 0246590162. He's in Koko in Tamale. This morning, I want us to throw back a bit because, you know, Guta is angry. They are angry at the 3 new tax laws that have been assented to by the president. They are angry. This morning, if you go to the port, freight forwarders are not happy because they say activities at the port are slowing down. This morning, if you go to Makola, if you go to Kaneshi, if you go to Agboglosh, if you go to Kejeta, if you go to Kotokraba, if you go to Tamale Central Market, if you go to all those markets, they are not entirely happy. Yesterday, somebody on Facebook was complaining about the price of tomato. And I remember that in 2021, we were told that we are now a net exporter of food, tomato. So I want us to throw back a bit because when the Akufo-Addo-led government came into power, 1 year after they were in power, the 61st independence anniversary, it made a very moving speech of Ghana beyond aid. Moving speech. Listen to the president.
Expanding the economy and thereby creating jobs. This year, we will see vigorous job creation in the public sector, beginning with the recruitment of 100,000 young men and women in the Nation Builders Corps. But what I am seeking above all is the rapid growth of private sector jobs, both in industry and agriculture, i.e., for instance, in the program for planting for food and jobs, which should generate a lot of rural sector jobs. Moving beyond aid demands that effective measures are taken to address widespread unemployment, especially amongst our youth. We are on the right path to do so. Fellow Ghanaians, corruption, or more specifically, the stealing of public funds, continues to hold back the development of our country. A recent audit by the Auditor General into the liabilities of the ministries, departments, and agencies led to the disallowance of some 5.4 billion cedis of claims. These are fictitious claims that would otherwise have had to be paid, but for the eagle eye of the Auditor General. Can you imagine what we can do with 5.4 billion cedis? It can certainly finance the free SHS for 5 years. Corruption is not a partisan matter, and we must all act to protect the public purse. In the words of the first president of the Fourth Republic, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, and I quote, "Combating corruption is not beyond us. Imagine the effect on our nation and our future if, for just a few months, all decent Ghanaians would have put aside their own convenience, apathy, and faint-heartedness, and challenge every corruption, no matter how petty, which comes their way."
Mr. President, that was what you said to us. I want to ask you this morning respectfully, how have you fought corruption? I remember back in the day when Mr. Martin Amidu was in office at the Special Prosecutor's Office. Each time I say, "Oh, we have set up the Office of the Special Prosecutor." It's not about the setting up of the office, it is about the impact of the office. So what levels of corruption has the Special Prosecutor's Office been able to fight? And how worried and concerned have you been about it? Because your good friend Martin Amidu said you are not willing to fight corruption, not in the past, not in the present, not in the future. It was in the Japa corruption assessment thing that he did, where he included the Airbus scandal, which has become the chewing sponge of the government appointees, but they failed to talk about the same thing. But you have said us, you have told us, as the late Jerry Rawlings said, that corruption has no political color, and no matter how petty it is, we need to fight it. Mr. President, you again promised jobs. You made mention of NAPCO, 100,000 of them. They are still old. Not just them, there are many different, splinter groups that are looking up to you for jobs. More than 13% of your young people are unemployed. And Mr. President, did I hear you talk about 4.5 billion being retrieved by the Auditor General? That was Daniel Domelovo, who was hounded out of office by your supervision, because the board chairman wrote to you and was indicating of the man's date of birth and nationality and all of that. And you endorsed that, and the man was hounded out. The same man who saved that 4.5 billion. And you said that could take care of free SHS for 5 years. Well, let me shock you, Mr. President. Have you forgotten that in 2020 alone, the Auditor General's report told us we had lost 5.3 billion to corruption, payment irregularities, contract irregularities, all those irregularities. So if you were happy about 4.3 or 4.5, I'm talking about 5.3 billion in 2020. So you have not kept your word, Mr. President. Take me back to take me back to Ghana 61. Please take me back there.
Requires a deliberate qualitative change in all aspects of our lives, especially in the structure of our economy, the nature of our infrastructure, the education of our young people and acquisition of skills, and above all, in our attitudes and holding firm to the values that define us. The change in our fortunes will only happen when our economy improves. Since I became president, I've been advocating for a Ghana, indeed an Africa beyond aid, and I'm keen to have the support of all of us in this enterprise. Nobody needs to spell it out to us that the economic transformation we desire will not come through aid. We've been on that trajectory for most of the past 61 years.
This was you, Mr. President. In the previous video I played, you talked about the protection of the public purse. How have you done that? I think it's only good that you give Ghanaian a mid-term assessment. Because when we were in primary school, we used to do mid-term tests. And then we used to do class tests. And then we used to do end-of-term tests. And then when we were going to be promoted, we did promotional exam. In 2020, you did your promotional exam. Now it's time to do a class test, or if you like, a mid-term test. How have you protected the public purse, Mr. President? Now you talk about the education of young people. The same young people who have been in different schools, Coco Sakura here and there. Ghanasco is still fresh on our minds. The same children who are learning in school without textbooks. Mr. President, you speak about values that define us. And yet you have not made any bold statement about this LGBT matter that is going about. Our values, our family values, living together as man and wife, and getting married and procreating, are values that define us. Mr. President, you spoke about the economy, and you said the economy will be expanded to create jobs. Today, the economy is shrinking under your watch. People can't import. The matters are a myriad of them. But I also like something you said to Mr. Macron. Play that video for me. French President, Mr. Macron.
Will not offend the questioner too much and some people around here.
I think there is a fundamental misstatement of the issue in the question. We can no longer continue to make policy for ourselves, in our country, in our region, in our continent, on the basis of whatever support the Western world or France or the European Union can give us. It will not work. It has not worked, and it will not work. Our responsibility is to charter a path which is about how we can develop our nations ourselves. It is not right for a country like Ghana, 60 years after independence, to still have its health and education budgets being financed on the basis of the generosity and charity of European taxpayers. By now, we should be able to finance our basic needs ourselves.
Mr. President, we have not been able to do that, and you are much aware. That's why we are at the doorstep of the IMF, bending and begging. You promised us Ghana beyond aid, but it appears we are a country in need of aid. Ghana beyond aid is now Ghana in need of aid. And this whole regurgitation of Russia, Ukraine, COVID is so sickening. I'll show you a video that one of your key appointees, a member of the NPP, I won't mention his name because he will be what was that word? People will go hounding him and harassing him. I won't mention his name. He gave me an Obroni video and told us what the Obroni think of us. That's why when you made the call to IMF, they were quick to respond. And that's why even after you have not been able to satisfy all the prerequisites for an IMF deal, the IMF continues to shower praises on you and say, oh, we are confident that you do it. Play the Obroni Koko video for me, please.
It doesn't have to. Its debts are in its own currency. We can simply print it. The African debt is not in its currency. The African debt is in US dollars. Africa has to earn the US dollars, and the only way it can earn the US dollars is not to be assassinated for growing its own food and becoming independent and doing something that the United States does not like. The principle underlying the foundation of the World Bank is that no country should grow its own food. Africa and the third world should only grow export crops. To export, in order to have an oversupply of cocoa and other tropical raw materials, to keep down the price, they must buy their grain from the United States or Europe, so that if they do something that we don't like, we can do what America tried to do to China in the 60s. We can...
So you see the mindset that they have. The mindset is clear. We're smuggling $40 million worth of gold out of this country every single month, Mr. President, under your watch. That's not protection of the public purse. And at that Ghana 61, you mentioned gold, you mentioned timber, you mentioned bauxite, you mentioned all the natural resources that we have. If we did have that, like the likes of Malaysia, South Korea, and all our peers at independence, why are we still wallowing in this abject poverty and swimming in the mud? Without dignity, we are begging. We are a proud nation. We will not go to IMF. Mr. President, I'll wrap up with this. Like they say in those funny clips, you see all the tough talk and the nice things that you did? In those funny clips, they said, a few moments later. Play that video of Nanado promising us that he will reduce taxes. Let us be reminded of what we were promised so that we will all start making the calls, sharing the link, liking and commenting, and reminding them, because it has no political color. When we go to buy milk, bread, sugar, rice, yam, kokonte, whatever it is, it has no political color. We are suffering. And may government now receive some great intuition, not to be repeating to us, COVID, Russia, Ukraine. COVID, Russia, Ukraine. COVID, Russia, Ukraine. It's become like a poem. You ask anybody, COVID, Russia, Ukraine. Back in the first term, whenever we ask of economic difficulties, they say, oh, free SHS. Any and When you ask the question, COVID, Russia, Ukraine, COVID, Russia, Ukraine, COVID, Russia, Ukraine, COVID, Russia, Ukraine, are we robots? Can we not say things as they are? Can we not be honest with ourselves? Can we not see? Can we not desist from the lies and the untruths? Let's go back to Ghana 61. Play the full tape. Listen to it. And ask yourself, if you're a defender of what is wrong, ask yourself this simple question. Have we done right to the people of Ghana? Have we done right? I end with this video.
Say, boy, I'm an Juma at Timu Ghana. One pray to say, one day I buy, the one person I buy in the decay. You pay for the say there be. You hear and they say, Obama, I'm crying to my phone, and now one thing, then no energy because one and a brain. It is a bad idea. Not Ghana, man, you cry. Won't be anywhere. Your opinion, no kind informal sector. I tell you, come as it is said MPP for. Yakupon MPP choir my.
Sometimes our people disagree with you, but I mean, I understand some of your approach. I mean, sometimes we take a hard bite. It helps us as politicians.
Nowadays, when I listen to you,